with Steve, Cat, Ryan, Amanda, and Eric. In the voice of NEW, Vince Berry. Hitting all the topics like a clothesline flurry. Turn up your speakers and hear them out. You can listen from your car, even on your couch. They too raw, who NXT? Handing out smackdowns, follow on IG. Plus, it's sponsored by Tag Me a Date. Go to YouTube and sub now for every update. It's all wrestling here. No safe space. Now listen in. Time to hear from some of the greats. I came to play. There's a price to pay. Time for you to get down on your knees. I came to say hi to the good old days. They're never coming back until you. I came to play. Get my dues paid. I guess you.
We all knew it was coming. We just didn't know when. Oh boy!
It's not on our pick'em card though, and that's the night it freaking happened.
Well, I was thinking that too. I was like, Ryan didn't put it on, but none of us really thought it was going to happen.
I got to be honest with you. It was the best fucking part of the chamber.
Well, it was, that was a waste of a 3-hour whatever until...
It wasn't even 3 hours. It was 2 hours and change. We'll get into it. Yeah. But Vince, go ahead, do your thing.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the War Report, the pro wrestling podcast brought to you by TagMeADate.com, a first only dating site exclusively for fans of professional wrestling. When the world gets straightened out again, we will relaunch, and then you can start meeting people on Tag Me a Date once again. Follow us on social media, and of course, we broadcast live all over the internet, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on a Tuesday evening. And we're here to talk about WWE Elimination Chamber, last night's Raw, and anything else that might come up, the AEW Women's Tournament, or anything else like that.
I mean, there's definitely a lot to cover, that's for sure.
There's a lot to cover.
I guess we should really kick it off with the Elimination Chamber Fallout, which, you know, I usually enjoy the Elimination Chamber. Yeah. I usually look forward to it. This year, I really think, or just overall going forward, after the Rumble, there really shouldn't be another pay-per-view until WrestleMania.
But instead,
let shit play out. You know, now they did the Elimination Chamber. It was a stupid fucking pay-per-view. It didn't even go a traditional. I mean, let's put it in perspective. The Elimination Chamber pay-per-view was shorter than a Monday Night Raw, which, I mean, that alone is pretty stupid in my opinion. And then you're going to squeeze in Fastlane before WrestleMania, which then they're going to do another 2-night Saturday and Sunday WrestleMania, which that bothers me. It's, you know, I would rather an 8-hour WrestleMania than spread it over 2 nights.
I would rather one really good WrestleMania than 2 watered down WrestleManias.
Right. I mean, to me, it makes no sense. I'm not excited to have Saturday and Sunday of Mania. Not like I'm not going to watch it. It's WrestleMania, but you know, it's
right. There was something a little special about Saturday being the night for NXT and the Hall of Fame.
Right.
That kind of built the anticipation for WrestleMania because you saw like, oh man, these guys had a really good ladder match, or there was a really good whatever you saw on NXT got you ready for the big show.
It got you stoked.
Yeah, it got you ready for it. And instead it's like Saturday is kind of like the warm-up day. And then I hate to be that guy, but who obviously Roman Reigns headlines the Sunday show because he's the main guy. So that means the other title match headlines night 1, which means you're headlining the opening night, which means you're not as big of a deal. Like the whole thing just makes it sound like, oh, you're on the first night of WrestleMania.
Right. I mean, and you know, we'll dive more into it. For me, the chamber, listen, we do our pick'ems, right? And as much as I always want to be right? Because whoever wants to be wrong. But in a way, I also am happy when I am wrong because then for me, it wasn't as predictable as I thought it was. And this pay-per-view, I went 4 out of 5. The only one I got wrong was the chamber match, which, quite honestly, that was a roll of the dice because I was very close to picking Daniel Bryan. And then with the way they've been seemingly starting to push Cesaro, I went with my gut, and I went with Cesaro, and then it wound up being Bryant. So, and listen, I'm good either way in that respect. But that just means I called the other 4 right on the money, which means it was a very predictable card. I don't know. I don't know what bothered me more. I think for me, it goes back to, it was just unnecessary. It was an unnecessary show. It was thrown together, I think, very last minute. And that's that's nothing new, especially lately, right? Even when we talk about Raw, SmackDown, Vince is making changes 15 minutes before they go live. There have been rumors that there's some SmackDowns that the entire thing gets rewritten as the show's going on. So, I don't know. I just, to me, it was very lackluster. I didn't think the chamber matches were anything spectacular. To me, if you were watching the video, Kat was throwing up the X and shaking her head when we were playing Miz. But you know what? If you sit back and you think about it, in my opinion, he's one of the most deserving people to win the title. It's been 10 years. The guy busts his ass. When he sucked in the beginning, he went on his own. He got acting classes. He did everything the right way. Then he started doing all the Marine movies, which, not for nothing, they were successful. And that's why they kept doing more of them. Now he has a hit show with Maurice, Ms. and Mrs., which, if you haven't seen, it's absolutely hilarious. My wife, who does not watch wrestling at all, looks forward to Ms. and Mrs. because it's a funny show.
Well, because the Miz's dad and Maurice's mom are the
Amazing.
funniest fucking people in the world.
Amazing. It's so true. They're hilarious.
They're fun. Those two, like, we had Mrs. Dad on TV. We never had Maurice's mom. Should be like
Marjo is the star of the show.
She should be the general manager of the women's division. Like, that's you know what I mean? Like, shit. Make it interesting.
That would absolutely be hilarious.
I want to Steve, though. I was given the X and shaking my head. I don't like necessarily the way it was done. I give 100% kudos.
All right, now hold on. I got to cut you off. I want you to elaborate on that. When you say you didn't like the way it was done, in my opinion, a cash-in is a cash-in. All the cash-ins seem to pretty much go the same, except the one time Seth Rollins, I think it was Rollins, interjected. It's a triple threat.
When you're talking about predictable, it was predictable from the moment that you saw MVP and The Miz backstage talking that this was going to happen. Then you see Bobby Lashley come out. Okay, Miz is winning the title. There was no surprise element. There was nothing to be like, holy shit, this is really happening type thing.
Well, yes and no, because I agree. But I think also it was a surprise up until that segment, which took place, 30, 40 minutes before it actually happened. So going into it and then watching, let's say, an hour and a half of the show, it was a surprise up until that point. I do agree with you, though. The minute I saw them talking backstage, I looked at my boys right away and said, he's cashing in and leaving with the title.
Exactly. Yeah. That's where the, really, and that's why it was like a Polo Miz, really? But it killed all the magic for me of what could have happened for his cash-in.
We really should have saw it coming because beforehand, remember how I was saying a couple weeks ago, somebody in WWE finally remembered that the Miz had the Money in the Bank briefcase and he didn't need to be in the Elimination Chamber match.
Right. Right.
It was almost like they had him in the Elimination Chamber match. I don't know. Was he going to lose the Elimination Chamber match and then come back in and cash in after the match was over? I don't know what.
And I said it a couple of months ago, too. I said when he's going to get the belt is right before the new season of Miz and Maurice is going to start.
I thought that's why he was going to cash in the fall.
Months ago.
Yeah. Because
the new season starts in 2 weeks.
Right. I mean, listen, at the end of the day.
There it is.
At the end of the day, the biggest issue I think we're all having with not even so much the cash-in, but just the whole deal in itself is last week, I even said on this show, I don't even give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those cash-ins that just took way too fucking long to happen. The fact that you had Otis win it from the beginning and never even had an opportunity to cash it in. And then Miz gets it and it starts all over. You know, it was kind of this was the most disappointing Money in the Bank briefcase scenario we've ever had, because the Money in the Bank briefcase, to me, is one of the most exciting things to happen in the year, because you never know if it's going to happen, if they're actually going to win. You know, historically, the person that cashes in does win, but there have been a couple instances where they're unsuccessful. So, you know, from that perspective, it is fun to see. But it just got to a point with this one that I didn't give a shit.
Because they already did a cash in and he failed, but because John Morrison handed the briefcase over instead of the Miz, it wasn't official. So they already did it and he failed, and then they just gave it back to him and just pretended like nothing ever happened. So
I will give this, though, his Instagram post after he won was freaking
hilarious.
That was fantastic.
Well, listen, and if you go over social media, the majority of people are not happy. They're pissed that Miz won. And I'm looking at it, and you have to just look how far the guys come. Forget about the fact that Miz and Mrs. is returning and they probably want to pump up the show and give him the title. At the end of the day, he deserves it. The guy works his ass off. There's nobody more loyal to this company. I mean, that's not true. There are many people that are as loyal, but I mean, he is a guy.
On the roster, maybe.
Well, and you know what? You got to look at it this way too. He can talk. He can wrestle. Yeah. He's good as a heel.
Yep.
He's good as a face. I like him better as a heel, but he's good either way. There aren't many guys that can do both.
Yep.
You know, and the ones that can do both stay for a very long time. You know, but there's people that can't pull it off. Like, we'll get into this, but I think Otis is done. And we'll get into that. But the fact that you turned him heel, biggest fucking mistake ever.
They fucked him up from the beginning because, the Otis thing started with him in the Money in the Bank. They fucked up Otis. They fucked up Mandy.
Yeah.
They got the other broad involved. They got the Dirty Dogs involved, Rude and Ziggler, they overcomplicated.
The other broad, do you mean Sonya Deville?
That's the one. But they got all these people involved, and then I know she had to leave. No, I'm sorry, I just couldn't remember her name. I couldn't remember her name, and I wasn't going to say the lesbian chick to be rude.
But broad is okay. No,
better than that
that lesbian chick.
But you know what I mean?
Jocelyn, I don't give a shit.
They took like 5 or 6 people, and they did this storyline that ultimately went nowhere because Otis lost that briefcase to the Miz.
Mm-hmm.
And then Otis, he was in a successful tag, successful in the sense that they were over. He was in an over tag team. They broke him up. So Otis, nothing happened with him. Nothing happened with Tucker. He's fucking. Yeah. He might as well go, sell sunglasses at the mall or something at this point. Otis was paired with Chad Gable, and they were doing the alpha training thing, and now Otis is heel, which doesn't.
And Gable's not good as a heel either. We've been saying that for a long time too. I mean,
the whole. So they really on SmackDown. SmackDown's very lucky that they have Paul Heyman directing this Roman Reigns thing, because otherwise SmackDown would stink. Because everything else on SmackDown, it sucks. Because all right, we'll get into this first match of the pay-per-view.
At least I'll say one thing. At least he isn't Shorty G anymore.
Yes,
that's a true story.
But to start with the SmackDown Elimination Chamber match, a couple things bothered me. First of all, the title wasn't on the line.
Yeah.
Second of all, you get the number 1 contenders match, and you have to have the match immediately after, which you already knew what that meant. Roman Reigns was going to do as little work as possible, hit one spear, pin whoever it was, because they just wrestled an hour-long match, and it was over, and then it was over. So there was really no progression in the main event scene until Edge hit the spear on Roman Reigns, which means we wasted a fucking hour for no reason. And
we wasted an hour for Edge to hit a spear when he could have done it any time.
And not for nothing. If anybody in the world, if anybody out there didn't think Mania was going to be Edge Roman, I mean, you're on another planet. I
thought it was going to be Edge Orton, and then once they decided that wasn't going to be the plan, I thought they were going to go one more round with those guys, but spear versus spear.
Well, they're going to prolong this Alexa Bliss and Fiend thing through Mania. They're going to have a final one off, which I'm okay with too. But we'll get into that.
The SmackDown side of it was just like, I don't know. I feel like if you're the Elimination Chamber should have a title on the line. If the title's not on the line, whatever. Edge comes
agree.
out, hits Reigns the spear, and then immediately points to the WrestleMania sign. And the guy already had the pyro ready to go. So here's in the WWE universe, they have a guy that Vince McMahon calls up and says, "Hey, you. Whenever Edge decides who his opponent is going to be, you have to hit the fireworks around the WrestleMania sign. Whenever it is. It doesn't matter if it's Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-view. You're just going to hit that button." And as soon as he pointed, the guy was ready on the button and hit it. I'm just like, it was the silliest thing I've ever seen. There wasn't even a pause. It was like, boop, pyro. But anyway, aside from that, Asuka. This ties into the Elimination Chamber, I promise. Asuka was removed from the card. She was supposed to wrestle Lacey. Lacey, of course, is pregnant, so they didn't have her on the show. But they just scrapped Asuka's match. They didn't give her a replacement opponent. She didn't even show, like, what they could have done, because the number one contender's Elimination Chamber stinks as a concept, and then the guy immediately lost the match that happened 2 seconds later, so it wasted everybody's time. Why didn't we have a women's Elimination Chamber with Asuka and 5 other girls in it, or 6 other, whatever it is, and do an Elimination Chamber with Asuka's title, and then at least
on the line.
At least she wins something before giving the title back to Charlotte, because look what happened. She wasn't on Sunday. On Monday, she tags with Charlotte. Asuka eats the pin, and now it looks like Asuka's going to turn heel on Charlotte, and Charlotte's just the victim in this whole thing. And it makes
And loses a tooth, and it wasn't because of Nia.
She lost like 3 teeth. She got like kicked her knee in the face by Shayna.
By Baszler. I know,
Yeah,
but I mean, think about that. Nia wasn't responsible this time.
But Asuka goes and does all this hard work and holds the title for so long, and it's just going to end up with her. She's never won a match at WrestleMania. Asuka, the best women's performer they've had on their
Listen, don't sit there and automatically assume that she's not going to get over at Mania. I mean,
Rick, I'm your daughter.
If she's going against Charlotte, she probably is not.
Well, listen, you never know. I mean, it looks like they're scrapping this whole finally. I mean, they have no choice, but you know, that segment with Rick on Raw, and you know, obviously we're moving on from that, but I don't really want to get into Raw yet. I will
that Vince was right. That was the best meme ever, thanking Lacey Evans' husband for getting rid of that horrible story.
Right?
Yeah, seriously.
Oh man, every time she's in a bad angle, that guy's just got to get her pregnant.
But but that's another thing about the Chamber that really pissed me off is you have this Chamber match, the title's not on the line, and then the next match is the title match. Yeah. It's like, you know, I mean, at least spread it out and have one early and then, you know, circle back and, you know, make it somewhat of a contest. I mean, there was no way that Roman was losing at that point. I mean, not that anyone thought he was going to lose anyway.
But even like, and the match wasn't very long. You're right. If they gave it a break, gave the other guy time to rest, whatever, you come back in the middle of the show or right before the other Elimination Chamber as like your second main event, Roman Reigns comes out and does this match, and you could still have the same segment with the Edge and the Pyro and everything, but at least now you could have, like, if it was Steve and I both picked Cesaro because we thought, oh, silly us, they're finally going to push Cesaro after having him on the
what
roster.
The fuck were we thinking?
It was like, oh, they made 3 new t-shirts, maybe they're going to push him. Nope. But like, I thought he would have a nice, even though he would lose, Cesaro
he'd have a showing.
Right. He could have like
I still think that they are gearing now.
Well, I think he might be the fast lane opponent for Reigns.
I think they're gearing now to really push Cesaro more than they've ever pushed him. I do believe, because
he's getting the best performance in that Chamber.
He's getting more airtime. He's getting more promo time. He's getting more match time. You know, he's really been a part of every show. And I agree with Kat. He was the best performer in that Chamber match. And by all rights, he should have won. Mm-hmm. You know, but then we'd be sitting here pissed off about how he got squashed by Roman, you know, 10 minutes later. You know, so.
You know what, though? I wouldn't have been as pissed off of a squash of Cesaro because they're trying to build that momentum that he deserves. Like, you know, he deserves the momentum.
Yes.
But like, it wouldn't have been like, oh man, okay, he's still got to go back and he's got to work his ass off. Maybe he'll get a rematch or something. Yeah. They made Daniel Bryan look like a freaking tool.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We'd
Yeah.
be mad if that was the same match that didn't go very long and Cesaro lost. In my head, this was a number one contender's opportunity that the number one contender would go out and have like a showcase match where they
Right.
wouldn't win, but they'd look really good. And you go, oh,
Right.
man, Cesaro looked great. And no.
He
that
came
was
that
great.
close to beating Reigns, but
Yeah.
oh man, Heyman did
Justify
something.
that much.
Yeah.
The only thing that I will disagree with you guys on is that I still would have been pissed if Cesaro got squashed. At the end of the day,
Oh, because he got squashed.
Cesaro should
Right.
never be squashed.
I didn't say I wouldn't have been pissed. I said that would have made more sense.
Well, no,
than
you said
what
you
they
wouldn't
did.
have been as pissed,
Right.
which I get, but to me, I would have been severely
least
pissed
they're doing
because
it-
Cesaro should never be squashed.
I agree.
I mean, at the end
I
of the
was
day,
Brian.
he's one of the best wrestlers on either brand.
Yeah.
You
The
know,
only
and
person
talk
that-
about loyal. I mean, you talk about all the shit he's been through. If I was Cesaro, I would have left and gone to AEW or New Japan
yeah.
a
Yeah.
long time ago.
Easily.
And he just re-signed. So,
Yeah.
you know, look
He
at that
likes it,
too.
Yeah.
But let's put it this way. In that entire match, the only person that should have been squashed would have been, if for any godforsaken reason, Baron Corbin won.
Oh,
Got
Yeah.
struck
I
down
can't
by
disagree
God,
with
just
that.
lightning.
I couldn't, and I still can't give a shit. Oh, Baron Corbin's not that bad of a wrestler. I just don't care. I don't care how solid of a wrestler he is.
The man's a murderer. He threw people off the building.
He's attempted murderer.
Yeah,
He
they're
just
fine.
he does absolutely nothing for me. Never has, never will. I
And
mean,
what's
and
nice is he's got such a great finish. He's
And his
got
theme.
look. He's
His actual theme song is good. Not the,
and it's true because
King
he's
stuff.
got one of those finishers that you can hit out of nowhere.
Yeah,
he's
that too.
got all this stuff that you should actually like about the dude, heel or face. I don't know what it is. I mean, you used to call him like, the leftover Mayan or something. I can't.
Yeah, he's like a leftover Sons of Anarchy guy.
Yeah, I
don't
just
know.
there's something about him. I cannot take him.
There's nothing to him. That's the
Right.
issue.
Yeah, there's not a lot of meat.
You know what I think the problem is that we just can't take him seriously. And I don't
No,
know if
that's-
it's
No, that's true too.
and I
Yeah.
think that's become more of an issue since becoming King Corbin.
And
You
the
know what I
dog
mean?
food and all that horse shit. Like,
Who would
yeah,
have thought anything could be worse than general manager Corbin? Yep, you found it.
yeah.
Well, yeah.
Or,
if there was
Friday's waitress, Corbin.
The pieces of flair. Yeah, the server vest and all that.
By the way, Vince, I do have to tell you that T-shirt is fantastic.
Oh. Thank you. Stay golden, everybody.
Thank you for being a friend. No.
Yeah. Our next match was Riddle, John Morrison, who earned his way in on the pre-show and taking place of Keith Lee, challenging Bobby Lashley in a three-way contest for the United States Championship.
that was actually a solid match.
That's
And,
great in my opinion.
that was probably the
Probably
best
was.
match of the night,
Mhm.
and I'm very happy to see Riddle. You know that I picked that one. I with everything he's been through, and then the lead up into the Chamber, it was set up perfectly for Riddle to be the guy.
Well, when he came out with the new gear, and it was
Well,
Oh,
right.
Evil Knievel inspired gear. I'm
Yeah,
like, yeah,
This
this
gear
guy's
was
winning.
nice.
Well,
Well,
and
I
it's
mean,
just
he's
it's
for sure
everything
winning.
about him too, because he's just not only is he great in the ring, he's got a great gimmick. He looks great. He's funny as hell. Like
Yep.
even the little shit, like on Raw, he had the promo backstage, and he's like, "What's going on, bro? Chachos?" Shit like that. Like he's absolutely like he is the perfect Spicoli.
Oh,
Like
he's a
I see him and I think of Spicoli. That's just and he's just a stoner that kicks ass. You know what I mean? And he's great. I love everything about Riddle, and I
It was
thought
a good match, yeah, for sure. Like,
and his match, and not to jump to Raw, and again we'll cover Raw, but even his match with Morrison,
oh yeah,
I mean, was probably the match of the night on Raw. I mean, those two really went at it, and unfortunately, there's a very good chance that Morrison did get injured. I haven't heard anything specific, but there was a point in that match where he was starting to hobble around, and I don't think that was a sell. I think he legit hurt himself.
the rumor is it's a torn ACL. Yeah.
Oh, because
There you go. And if it's a torn ACL, he's going to be on the show for a while. The good news is, though, he can still be Mrs. Bitch and still come out and just not wrestle.
and he's
you
got
know.
crutches, and he could hit
Yeah.
people with crutches.
Right.
But he took a bad, like he was doing that barrel roll dive that he does over the top rope, and like caught his foot, and I thought he got a concussion because he dove to the outside. Riddle didn't really catch him, and he hit like his face on the floor during that dive. And I saw the ref go right over to him and talk to him, but then the ref got back up and he kept going. And I thought maybe he just
Well, he didn't throw up an X, so
right. That's the thing. I was like, okay, I guess he's fine. But maybe catching whatever he did, he actually messed up his knee. But I saw him hit his head pretty hard on that thing too. So might have just been a bad landing overall. Oh, Bob likes Riddle. That's
Who doesn't like Riddle?
I mean, I just you'd think a straight-laced guy like Bob wouldn't like such an outlandish character like that.
No, but correction, because when he first saw the match, he starts PMing me, this guy ain't winning. I said, okay, and I said, yes, he is.
And yeah, you were right.
I think that's
even just the way he's wearing the strap now, like
Yeah.
the way that he wears it around his chest, like it's just the little things, but it works.
John Morrison, it's saying that he's going for the MRI tomorrow.
Oh boy.
Well, we wish him all the best. I mean, that's really sucks.
That is rough. Because he put on a hell of a performance. And he had to wrestle 2 matches that night. The buy-in basically match where you had to win to get into that triple threat, which they beat Elias, Mustafa, and Ricochet. I mean, when you look at those 4 guys, John Morrison wins every time. Well, between Elias, Mustafa Ali, and Ricochet, John Morrison wins. And Bob,
Let me tell you, though, on paper, that's a hell of a match.
It wasn't a bad match. It was just like I don't know. Ricochet, once again, Ricochet looks like a doof. Once again, Retribution look like doofs. Like, I don't know. Elias,
A series of doofs.
A series of unfortunate doofs. John Morrison was the only one that really hit his stride there. You might have saw the comments. He thinks Bob thinks that Riddle can actually wrestle, which I agree. And obviously he's got his amateur background, his MMA background, and he's
strong as hell.
Yeah,
I mean, some of the like he does. He did a. I don't know. He really, his strength, like to me, his strength compares to Cesaro in a way, like to the point where I would love to see a one-off between Riddle and Cesaro.
That would be fantastic.
Why not get a full feud?
Yeah,
well, I'm okay with that too, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. So that was a good showing. Riddle, in order to set all the things in motion, Riddle had to win the U.S. title, so Bobby Lashley is free to do other things. So our next match, which was kind of the who gives a shit match of the night, Nia and Shayna.
Oh God!
Retain their titles against Bianca and Sasha, which on paper sounds like the stupidest thing I've ever said in my life. If you put a gun to my head and you said who's going to win in a wrestling match, Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks or Nia and Shayna, I would pick Bianca and Sasha 99 times out of 100.
You think they'd do the tag team for a bit
I
and
thought they
for
were
a
gonna do
month?
the wacky tag team, but I'm challenging you, but then we split up kind of thing.
Right, going into the rest of it. But what's this fucking thing going on with Reginald?
Oh, Reginald. Yeah, I don't know if he's so. All right, I gotta call it like I see it with Reginald. I like Reginald. I think Reginald, the performer, he's a Cirque du Soleil guy. He's really good. He cuts a good promo. I think having no matter what you call him, sommelier, he's somebody's black manservant.
He's Virgil 2.0.
Essentially, yeah.
It's just not like it's not okay. It's just it hasn't been okay. Even when Ted DiBiase did it in the 80s, it was still not okay. It's just not okay to own people, let alone own a black person. Like you just can't do it.
Wait. You can't do that?
It's not. No, but no.
Is that why you bought all that land in Pennsylvania?
You're looking at it the wrong way, and it's not a situation where he's being owned. It's a job. He's getting paid to be her sommelier or whatever the fuck you want to call it. The premise behind it, yes, I see what you're saying, but at the end of the day, this is the world of professional wrestling. I mean, it's just it's how it goes. It's not. I don't see it as a racist thing or it's
But
the
now
guy
he's
wanted a
wrestling.
job, and he's doing a great job at it,
Right,
you
but
know,
the
and he's way better than Virgil ever was.
Well, yeah, right, but a wrestler. But I mean, just thinking like if
In
you're a
20
sommelier-
years, there might be a small line for him,
Oh,
as
man.
opposed to Virgil's no line.
in 20 years, we're gonna have Sasha's kid come back, and then he's gonna be the sommelier for Sasha's kid. Oh, yeah. But that's the thing. He was Carmella's sommelier, but then now he's got a crush on Sasha. And once again, these women. This is something else I got to talk about. They just pretend that these women aren't married. They're still even to yesterday. They're talking about Lacey as if it's a mystery as to whose child it is. She's been married for a decade. She's got another kid that's 5. Figure it out. Like, and then, oh, well, I think Reginald has a crush on Sasha. Somebody needs to go, well, did anybody ask Mikaze about that? He might get a little jealous. Because guess what?
Yeah, but there's a lot of people. But there's a lot of people that don't.
Wrestler.
But
He
there's
should
a lot of
wrestle.
people that don't know a fucking thing about Mikaze or any of them. You know, at the end of the day, it's a show. You know, it's like you go to the movies and you watch, you know, this one fucking this one, knowing that they're married to this one. I mean, it's a show.
I know, but
But
I get what you're saying, but
here's the difference, though. When you see, like, let's say whoever, they're walking the red carpet with their spouse to go into the movies. You don't see the spouses necessarily for all these superstars, but we know they exist.
Yeah. But I just think it's weird that, like, even because here's the thing, there's legs to that. Not that Mikaze has to be a regular performer, but he's been the seamster for them for years because he's a very good gear maker. He's also a very good wrestler. For those of you who haven't seen him wrestle, he's really good. Obviously, I don't know if he's wrestled in a while, but even as a one-off, because you had Sasha wrestle Reginald, if they do the crush thing, and just, you know, one day Mikaze's back there sewing a costume and his back is to the camera, and Reginald's like, oh, you know that Sasha Banks, she's really cute, blah, blah, blah. And then this guy turns around and goes, that's my wife. And then, oh, they wrestle. Then you've got the sommelier
you know why?
wrestling
Because
the guy that makes the costumes.
here's why, though. Here's why. Because the reality is people want to think they're available. You know what I mean? There's a draw to that. You know, everybody knows Carmella and Corey Graves are together.
Is this still a thing? Wow.
They live together. They live together in Philly.
Oh, you know what? Which one I was shocked at? Bo Dallas and
Liv Morgan.
Yeah.
Apparently they own a farm together. I didn't realize.
What?
Yeah. So apparently they've been together quite a while.
Bo
Are
Dallas.
you kidding me?
From the scuttlebutt that's going on online, Bo Dallas is not being used, but he's still being paid. So he took that money and bought a farm, not died.
Because he's thinking future past the WWE and have something to do.
His real estate license certification with the money that he's making now. So,
Okay.
But then
So he's going to be teaming up with Save with Conrad.
Yes, it could be for the You Better Believe It podcast.
There you go.
At the end of it, they just casually mentioned, oh, yeah, the farm, him and Liv Morgan bought this farm and are going to live on it.
Oh, my God. I never would have guessed those two.
Yeah, it apparently they've been together for quite a while. But, you know, so Bob's posting a very good question. Why are we seeing the same wrestlers every week? And I don't really know how to answer that. I mean, you see the wrestlers, the same people every week because these are the ones that are drawing the viewership. You know what I mean? Like, I don't.
In a company with like 400 people on the payroll, I see what he's saying. It's even like underneath guys, like, not to compare their different shows, but like Dynamite or AEW Dark or whatever. There are squash matches, and the top talent goes over the unsigned or the students or whatever they are all the time. But they're different ones. There are some people like Baron Black you always see on there. There's a couple guys that you know the names of, and you get to know their names because they're losing. But like, it's kind of they just vary it out. Like, it's
You see more. There's more faces instead of the 10 that on each show.
Right. It's not like Drew Gulak is in every segment like sometimes they do. They're like, oh, what do we do? It's like Drew Gulak in everything. Okay.
I think also part of it has to do with right now is that no one's also traveling.
Right, it's the COVID thing. They don't want to
It's
take
only
that many
a certain
people on.
group that are performing in Florida all the
Right.
time.
Right.
Some of them don't want to travel at all. Like even Daniel Bryan has said it quite a few times with his asthma and everything with his immune system. You'll see him for 3 weeks and then he'll be gone for another 3 weeks because he goes back, to Napa with Bree and the kids. And then they're never, and then they come back. It goes back and forth with some of them. Like,
and I think too, it's also, Daniel Bryan as an example. I mean, he's got a new baby, so he wants to be around and be able to help Bree and be a dad. And, his career is obviously winding down.
Roman took off for how long when the whole pandemic started?
Well, but I mean, listen, the guy just had beaten leukemia. I mean,
there's a whole bunch of different factors or whatever.
And I think the ones that they're using more regularly are the ones that live in Florida as well. They don't have to get on a plane. They don't have to, they have to take an hour or two drive and do the show and go home. And which listen, things are, and listen, at the end of the day, things are starting to open back up. So the travel schedule is going to start to happen again. It's, everything's not going to remain in Florida. I mean, even here in New York now, they're opening up the Garden. They're opening up, I think, the Nassau Coliseum for, I think it's 10% capacity now, but, that's going to change. I'm sorry, not Nassau, Barclays Center, because they were actually making a point that for the first time since March last year, the Nets are going to have some live fans in the crowd tonight. So, as things start to open up and things start to progress, you're going to see more travel, and I think you're going to see more of the talent being used. But it's right now, being that we're on the official road to WrestleMania, you're only going to see the core group of guys being used anyway, the ones that are going to be premiered at WrestleMania, and that's all starting to really take form, outside of the fact that we're going to have this bullshit Fastlane pay-per-view, which, to me is just very unnecessary. You're going to cram that pay-per-view in 2 weeks before a 2-night WrestleMania? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So, well, we'll finish up the pay-per-view with the Elimination Chamber. Drew wins the Elimination Chamber, and of course, after the Elimination Chamber is over, Bobby Lashley comes out, beats up Drew. Miz comes in, officially cashes in his Money in the Bank after a brief false finish where it looked like Drew was going to make a comeback. Skull-crushing finale, your new WWE champion, The Miz. Once again, I hate I don't hate that the title changed hands. I don't even hate that there was Money in the Bank cash-in. I hate that it was exactly like how Cena lost the title at that one the first time. The first time,
at New Year's Revolution.
And I know people, the 5-year-olds and 8-year-olds who watch wrestling, won't know that that's a thing. It just bugs me because it's just like I've seen it. And then the other thing that bugged me is,
do we know what the Miz girl looks like now?
Somebody actually interviewed her. I didn't get a chance to watch it yet, but somebody did an interview with Miz Girl to see what she felt about this title change.
Oh my god, I have to go look for that.
I gotta go.
She thought Miz deserved it, and that he was nice to her. Yeah.
Listen, at the end of the day, I said it before, and I'll say it again. He does deserve it, and I'm happy for him. And the only thing that, for me, knowing in my head, is that this is going to be a very short-lived title reign for him.
Oh, yeah.
At the end of the day, he is going to be considered a placeholder, right? Because all lines are showing that Bobby Lashley is about to get this huge push going into WrestleMania, and I'm starting to think that Bobby Lashley is leaving WrestleMania as your champion.
In as your champion.
Well, sure. now this, so that's my next question. And we'll get into Raw, obviously, but the whole Raw was geared to Bobby Lashley made this deal, and
had a certain amount of time to make it.
And he was expecting his title match to be last night, and of course Miz figured out a way to get out of it, and then Braun showed up, and then Shane showed up, and now they set up this Braun versus Lashley match, which to me, that match was abysmal.
Yes.
And it's a shame because two juggernauts like that, it should have been a great match. The finish sucked. That spear looked horrible. The fact that Braun got pinned, but then kicked out afterwards, looked sloppy.
They love doing that kick out on 4 thing.
Well,
strong.
Yeah, well, listen, if you remember, this goes all the way back to Hogan versus Warrior.
Well, that's right. Exactly what I was thinking.
You know, because Hogan kicked out on the 4 count and Warrior won both titles. But, you know, I hated the finish. I hated everything about that match except the idea of the match, because going into it, I said, now this is going to be a great match. I was very disappointed. So now we're going to get Miz versus Lashley next week. How does Miz not lose?
Right. Unless
Drew McIntyre.
Or Braun Strowman. Although it kind of looked like they wrote Braun Strowman off again.
Or John Morrison if he's clear.
If he has a torn ACL, he's not going to be cleared by next week.
I think, there's going to be, if only because I feel like they're saving the title change for the first pay-per-view on Peacock. For those who are not following along at home.
That's right.
True.
Supposedly, Elimination Chamber is the last WWE Network pay-per-view as they move everything over to Peacock. There is a contingency plan where if Peacock doesn't have everything in place, that they will still let people watch it on the WWE Network. But their assumption is that they want to be fully operational by that pay-per-view. So, by that logic, I feel like they're saving the title change for Fastlane to go, see, this is why you buy Peacock and stay with the WWE Network so you can see it. Even though the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view was a wet fart, like you charge $9.99 a month. That pay-per-view wasn't even worth the $9.99. Now the pay-per-view it's going to be $4.99 a month to get Peacock. So that means the pay-per-views are worth $4.99. But then you've got all the archives of The Office and everything else you pay for Peacock for. You're basically paying like $1 a month for a WWE pay-per-view. And my concern is that the quality is going to continue to go down.
I understand your concern. I understand your concern with that, but at the end of the day, for the quality to continue to go down will only hurt the WWE brand. And I don't,
especially now they're tied with another brand. They have to bring a quality product.
They made $1 billion. They better invest it.
Well, right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So I want to say that I disagree on that. I think that, listen, at the end of the day, WrestleMania is not going to be a bad show. You know what I mean? It's WrestleMania. At the end of the day, the 2-night aspect of it put aside, the actual show itself, I think, is going to be pretty solid. We're probably going to have some live fans there because they're in Florida and they don't seem to give a shit in Florida. So, I'm sure they're probably going to do it similar to the Super Bowl. They're going to have 20,000, or whatever, which, listen, 20,000 fans, compared to the fact that we've had nothing but screens for the last year is awesome.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I can't see the quality continue to go down, although I think Fastlane's going to suck because really there's just no reason for it.
No, there's no. I feel like it's going to Fastlane. I feel like is going to be like one of those. Remember the last time they did one? Not the last time, but the last time was a really notable one. Triple H wrestled Dean Ambrose for the WWE title, and it almost seemed like they were going to take the title off Triple H that night and have the Shield do their, Reigns Ambrose main event or whatever. That was I want to say it was a 90-minute network special or something.
Yeah,
right? It wasn't full. So maybe
it was very short.
They're just going to do a 90-minute show with a couple matches on it. They're not going to do a full. Not that even last night was I feel really ripped off that pay-per-view wasn't a 3-hour pay-per-view last night.
Well, don't forget this too, by the way. The pay-per-views are still offered on DirecTV and cable and everything. So some people out there paid $50, $60 for something like that.
They're fucking stupid.
It's upward of like 60.
I mean, listen, at the end of the day, the network has been around long enough where if you're stupid enough to go and pay $50, $60 for a fucking pay-per-view when you could pay the $10 a month and get the show, shame on you. You're an idiot.
I'm saying, that's still out there. And then to go back to the point of whatever you guys were talking about, Peacock, that you want the quality of the product to go up and everything like that, going to another network or going to that stuff. SmackDown got moved to Fox how many years ago? How many shitty episodes of SmackDown have there still been there on Fox, where Fox has even been still yelling at the WWE and coming up with things saying, listen, you're not delivering what y'all promised. So I don't
Well, that's I don't. That's more so because of ratings, and I think that's not necessarily because the product has been shit. Although most of the time it has been, but I think it's more so
we had an episode
true
where
wrestling
there was
fans
being poured on
true
people.
true wrestling fans are really having a struggle without the crowd being there.
Absolutely.
You know, the screens have made a huge difference. Piping in the crowd reactions and everything else makes a big difference, more so for the wrestlers themselves.
Mhm.
Because, you know, it gives them that adrenaline because even though it's piped in, they're hearing it. And it gives them something to be more showy and showmanship, you know.
I'm not going to argue my cheap Royal Rumble seat. I'm very happy. I was happy.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's better than nothing. But I think, you know, a lot of the flack that WWE was getting from Fox was early on before the screens and everything else. So it was very hard to watch. You know, the fact that you can hear every bump and that you can hear the commentators calling the match, you know, it really was
before the pandemic, though. Fox was complaining when the whole started going with the whole Paul Heyman, Eric Bischoff stuff, who was running the show. Fox has had this issue for a while.
They got mad because they took Heyman out of producing.
Right.
You know, which that I kind of agree with. I think that was stupid because nobody's got a better mind right now than Heyman. I mean,
Absolutely.
he is the single reason why Roman Reigns is as good of a heel as he is right now. It's because Heyman is really in control of everything that he says and does. And, you know, Roman has never been more believable than he has been in this heel run. And I don't know if it's because of Heyman or if it's just because we've been waiting so long for a heel turn. We finally got it, and it's just working really well.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, it did all come together at the right time. You know, Roman, you couldn't turn him heel right after coming back from the cancer thing. They had to wait.
There was no way. Who was going to boo him after cancer? And that's why I said, oh, he's never going to fucking turn heel. But it just happened to work the right way. The timing, you're right. The timing was perfect.
He would go, and he went off TV again. It wasn't that he was sick. He chose to be off TV due to the coronavirus thing. But that's another level of it where the real life of it was, oh, Roman Reigns didn't want to be on. He didn't want to come to work in case he got sick. That could also be looked at as, oh, Roman Reigns doesn't care as much about WWE as everybody thinks. He just wants to be the top guy and be in these top like that. The reality kind of played into the fiction where he's the head of the table and he only wants title matches and this, and the perception could just be, oh, well, Roman Reigns decided not to come back, not just because of coronavirus, but because he didn't want to come back until Vince McMahon offered him title matches and all this other shit. And that kind of plays into the heel, you know, the heel stuff. The thing that bugs me about this Elimination Chamber, this last one where Drew, you know, I think we are going to eventually, since we're talking about Bobby Lashley here, Bobby Lashley versus Drew, I think is the Mania main event for night one. And I think Bobby goes in with the title, and I don't know if he leaves with it. I don't know if they give Drew McIntyre a WrestleMania moment with crowds because his last WrestleMania moment was silent.
Here's my thing with that. I think with Lashley, as long as MVP stays as his mouthpiece, he's got a shot at a real long run with the title.
Yeah.
If he has to fend for himself because he's horrible on the microphone, and that's going to kill him.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he's got the Mike Tyson syndrome. The voice doesn't add up to the body, and he's just not
Brock
convincing.
Lesnar. What the fuck, man?
Well, but
Is
again,
screeching?
that's why you've kept Heyman with Brock, because Brock is a beast, and as long as he doesn't have to talk, it's gold.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So it's going to be a similar thing with Lashley. You know, he has to MVP needs to stick around and be his mouthpiece, and as long as that happens, I can see Lashley walking into Mania with the title, and I can see him walking out with the title. Drew McIntyre has now had 2 title runs within the year. He's done a great job. It's time to move on. You know, I think now.
And we didn't see him on Monday Night Raw, right?
No, he was not on Raw, and I'm okay with that too. I think, you know, he took a beating. He lost the belt. Give him a week off. There was so much going on Raw. He wasn't needed there. I actually thought Raw this week was better than the Chamber.
Yep, and don't forget, Drew McIntyre recovered from COVID and everything too. Let the man have a break for a while.
Yeah, no, he definitely deserves some.
But it also would take away from the main event, because how wouldn't McIntyre try and interject into that?
Where would he? Yeah, so
like
what
it would be hard for him just to ignore this situation.
Where does it leave Drew for WrestleMania if he's the odd man out this night and not in the title match?
I could see them doing another Sheamus McIntyre match. Quite honestly,
maybe
number one contender match.
Yeah,
that would work.
Since we have Raw up on our lower third here, telling you what's going on, and
we did have some of the highest ratings for the last couple of weeks.
Good night, Bob. Thanks for contributing.
Yep. Raw,
thank you.
Raw had once again Retribution looking like a series of unfortunate doofuses.
Oh, wait! I've been waiting. I've been waiting
I'll let
to
you
post
do this.
this. Are you ready? Are you ready? I've been waiting to hit the button.
Yes.
It looks like it's finally ending, and I couldn't be happier. Because it's funny too, because they actually were wrestling well, and they were going to win the match, and then they got screwed over, and then he's yelling at them, but it was his mistake.
Yep.
So but now here's my question.
Mm-hmm.
So we finally get what we've been waiting for. Retribution is gonna finally end. Yeah. Are we gonna get fuck it. I'm gonna call him Dijak. Are we gonna get Dijak back to being Dijak?
I think that's how this ends, is those guys win their personality.
Are we gonna get Mia Yim back as Mia Yim?
I hope so.
That's this is because if they still stay as Mace and whatever the fuck the other name is and all that, it's just not going to work. Like, Dijak needs to take that fucking mask off. He needs to get rid of the makeup. He needs to become Dijakovic again, or whatever you want to call him. I want to see him and Keith Lee have some amazing matches on the main roster. Yeah. Dijak is another one of those guys that I'm so big on, and not because I've gotten friendly with him over the years or anything else. He deserves it. You know what I mean?
It's not that just the guy and he's a nice guy. Anybody could be a nice guy, but if they can't wrestle, they can't fucking wrestle. He's what they're looking for in a WWE superstar, and they stuck him under a mask. Everybody else, they bring him in from Mexico. Alberto Del Rio, take the fucking mask off. Garza, take the mask off. Phantasma, take the mask off. All these guys take their masks off. You, who's never worn
put it on.
Asshole.
Get this jockstrap on and get the fuck out of here.
Get your Aldo Montoya jockstrap over your face and let's do this thing.
It's just.
Really it worked great for the Super Bowl.
Aldo Montoya.
Aldo Montoya.
I haven't heard that name in like 20 years.
Jockstrap on his face.
So listen, on Raw, we had what seems to be the ending of Retribution. Great.
Thank God.
We saw what seems to be the end of this Charlotte Lacey Ric Flair saga. Thank God. We also got 2 heel turns. We got Apollo Crews finally turning heel. I was good with that. It was a long time coming.
Yeah.
But then we had Otis. So we touched on it briefly. Why? I mean, it just, to me, that made no sense.
They got nothing left that they can do with the guy. They got to do something.
Yes, they can. They could have him on his own. They fucked it up big time.
They fucked it up.
Yeah. Well, they always do. That's just how it works.
He's right. He's an undercard guy that's over. They have a essentially useless 24/7 title that they use for these comedy skits. What did they do back in the day with like Scotty 2 Hottie and all these other guys, Crash Holly, guys who they were never going to use? They put him in that 24/7 hardcore division, and they let him play in a ball pit or dress up like clowns. All this cool, all this training stuff with Otis and Gable. What if? Because the tradition is whoever wins the 24/7 title, as soon as they win, gets up, does this, looks around, and then runs away, and then 30 people follow him. What if Otis is too fat to chase after the 24/7 champion, and Gable trains him, and then he finally is fast enough to catch him, and then he wins the title, and he Otis puts Chad on his shoulders like Macho Man, and they do. Do something with him. He's funny and he's fat. It's the easiest thing.
You want Chad Gable to be the Elizabeth?
Yes.
There was nothing better for me. There was nothing better than the whole stakes and weights and the whole, you know, he's
He does the whole thing. He's
right. He
Yeah.
was great as a face, and I don't think he's going to be a good heel. And it's only going to ruin him even further.
Yeah.
What if he's a heel that doesn't think he's a heel?
Yeah, what if he like eventually realizes that Gable is like manipulating him, and then he turns on him, and then he's a babyface again?
Well, listen,
Well,
that's the
what
only,
if he's
that's
a
the only way to
babyface the
save
entire
him.
time?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's the only
he
way to
acts like
save
it,
him.
but Gable's kind of moving him into doing heel
He's
stuff.
not realizing behind the scenes. Yeah, he doesn't know that he's a bad guy. Yeah.
So listen, we're I can't believe it, but we're already getting really close to the top of the hour here. We got about 5 minutes left, so I'm not trying to race through things, but there is another thing that I do want to cover.
Oh, what
Wrestling Federation. For over 50 years, the revolutionary force in sports entertainment.
One thing I will agree on with Eric, this was very Papa Shango-esque. Brings you back to the Ultimate Warrior many, many years ago with Papa Shango and the voodoo. So now we have Randy Orton puking up black goo.
And
That
the,
was fantastic.
if you've never seen the Warrior
I
thing,
happen to like it, actually.
The Warrior for no reason is wearing a baseball cap because he's never worn one in his life.
Ever.
He's got like this. You can tell he's wearing a wig, but he all of a sudden he starts sweating, but instead of sweat, it's green slime going over his face.
Yeah.
And at first he wipes it off, and then he like runs it through his fingers. He looks right, and the way he ends it is you go Warriors, and that's it.
So stupid.
But Orton, who apparently worked in a coal mine for the last couple weeks, and that's coughs up his black lung. And then just runs off screen. He just runs. It was just.
Hey,
so
if you're
out of
coughing
place.
up your black lung, you're gonna go somewhere. And
I know, but I mean, it was out of. I just don't know. That was the weirdest. They've never established that the Fiend or Bray Wyatt can make someone throw up black goo. This is all very new. Like,
now hold on. I think
we'll go. We'll go to
I
our
think
Fiend
I think that was tying in with Alexa from last week.
putting the spell.
With right. I think that kind of where they were headed with it. I don't necessarily think it was the greatest. I've been a very big, as we all know, I've been a very big fan of this whole Bliss transition to the Harley Quinn kind of deal, and then with the Fiend, and obviously the Fiend is coming back. Who the hell knows when? But I mean, it's got to be.
Probably
I would say
Fastlane.
I was going to say it's got to be between now and Fastlane to build up the final one-off with Orton at Mania. But that was a segment. It was a way to do it without Bliss having to be there. Technically, Orton really didn't have to be there either because it was probably a pre-taped, backstage segment.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right, and went home. Yeah, I don't know. I just
It was poorly done. I think.
people seem to.
I don't
forget
think
about
there's really a good way of doing. Like, it's very hard to do.
Well,
without
I
coming
mean,
off
the
as
way that.
corny.
Well, no, I hear you, but I think it was more so the way Orton just ran off.
Yeah.
Like it should have been like he saw it, he collapsed, he started convulsing, or something. Instead he just runs off and what? You know what I mean? Like
that shit. What are you gonna do? You're gonna go run somewhere. You're not gonna.
Like, I don't know. Maybe the camera guy could have followed him, and he's like puking up black, and the toilet is covered in black ink and shit. I don't know, something.
He went and called his mama.
Right. We're like, here's the thing. They're kind of flip flopping between this is a science fiction fantasy thing, and this is still kind of in reality, and we don't want it too scary because we're still PG, so we can only do so. And it's like if you're gonna do this shit, you just got to do it you got to commit to it.
You got to go all in.
Because like the Undertaker brought lightning bolts down from indoors and lit a camera guy on fire. Like they've done it on TV before. They've had this kind of over the top
Kane
stuff.
hooked someone's
Wow.
testicles up to a battery.
I mean,
Yeah,
listen, dude, if you're gonna go there, they lit the Fiend on fire 3 months ago.
Yeah.
right, but what I'm saying is like the coughing up the goo. If you're gonna go as far as lighting,
There should have been
whole
more
body
to
up,
it.
there's got to be more goo. Or how about
Right.
when he's spitting up and the last time he looks up at the camera and is the last time he coughs covers it in goo and the whole
Yeah,
screen
that
goes
would be a
black.
great transition.
He's like, blah, blah, blah.
But that happened in hour 1, though. That's why.
Oh, because it didn't happen midway through the show. Yeah,
If
but
it happened later on in the night, we probably would have gotten more
more adult stuff.
detailed
That's what it's fine.
elaborateness to it because, like I
Yeah.
said, like
I
between
don't
like
know.
9:30,
But you know what, though? I agree with what you're saying, but then that's bullshit booking because then they should have
Yeah.
saved it for the second hour.
I agree.
You know what I mean? Why do it in the first hour then?
The last
know.
couple of weeks, most of the end stuff has been Randy Orton and Alexa
And that's
Bliss,
why
and
they
they
could
doing that stuff that you can get away with at that hour. But like at the beginning of the night, like my kids are watching and stuff like that. They're not awake at like 10, 11
I have
o'clock.
kids. I don't. As someone who doesn't have kids, I don't realize that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not that my kids would care because my kids have seen all this shit anyway, and they all know about it because you know they're
Your
WWE.
youngest one is a sociopath.
Which one?
Rosie.
Bro, yeah, she's not my oldest. Autumn's my oldest.
No, I said you're young. Oh yeah,
Youngest.
No,
There's 2 younger ones after her.
Oh, jeez.
Okay. Oh, so she's the middle child. That's why she's messed up. Okay.
Yeah.
12, 8, 5. So,
She's the one that's obsessed with Chucky and
no,
carrying around knives, and she
Yes.
wants to murder people, and she just
Yes.
yeah.
yeah, she's
Okay.
8.
But the way
Yeah,
I'd like this to end is Orton being possessed by the Fiend and announcing the Fiend's return. Like a one-off, just like a possessed voice.
Yes. Because if the possession thing works, and the black thing is that he let him in, maybe
Yeah.
he let. But now
Oh, that could be interesting.
But is
And
the
just
Fiend- the
on
Fiend is
Fastlane,
inside
he
Randy
does
Orton.
the like let me in.
We'll
Yeah.
have to see how they
Randy
follow it
Orton-
up next week.
Oh, if Randy Orton starts to speak and the Fiend's voice
Oh my god,
Yeah.
that would be freaking amazing.
comes, then we're on board. But this goo thing.
Well,
I
listen,
don't
it's not like they haven't done that before. They did that with Alexa.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's very
Right.
possible. And
As
on
long as
that
Something
note,
like I'm coming, or have Alexa talk to the Fiend through Randy Orton.
That's what this whole possession is and everything. Oh my god, that would
bring back the
Well,
Fiend. not bring
we'll
back
have to
his Bray Wyatt,
see.
it brings back
We'll
the
have
Fiend
to
into
see
Orton.
how they follow it up next week and
Ryan,
see
brilliant.
if they actually go that route. Because if they do, then that makes sense, and then that
Yes.
works.
But then if Orton is possessed by the Fiend, does Bray Wyatt come back and say, I want to beat you to take the Fiend back? Or I'm going to beat you and send the Fiend to hell to get rid of him altogether?
Ooh,
That's interesting.
that's another layer.
Then that's like, does he want the power of the Fiend back? Or does he see how evil the Fiend is now that he's not possessed anymore? And Bray Wyatt, quote unquote, as normal as Bray Wyatt can
Yeah.
get, notices
That's a
how
very good call.
So
That's a very good call.
are we going to have Fiend to fight? Maybe Randy's going to be the Fiend at WrestleMania, and Bray Wyatt's just going to be Bray Wyatt. There we go. We'll leave you guys with that. We're going to blow your mind, and then we'll find out next week. If, listen, next Monday, the Fiend is going to come out, and Randy Orton's going to fight him, and it's just going to be back to normal, and we're going to be completely wrong. But at least you had a fun last 5 minutes of this show.
We built up the blue ball. It's just gonna
Right?
hurt next week.
I know.
And
right?
on that note, it is
Yes.
top of the
That
hour.
is it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We, of course, broadcast every Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. on Eastern Time. We're on Facebook, broadcasting live, YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, all kinds of live streaming options. If you prefer the live stream for video, absolutely go to our YouTube or any of our social medias at Tag Me A Date. That's Tag Me A Date, no spaces. It's all one word. Type it in the YouTube search box to hit subscribe and hit the bell to be alerted when we go live or when we upload a new video. If you prefer to watch on Twitch, it's twitch.tv/War Report, also all one word. The rest of our social medias are at Tag Me A Date. Just search for that in your search engine of choice. And if you prefer the audio version to the video version of the podcast, you can subscribe to our show on Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Play Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. The audio version gets uploaded by Ryan, who does a very diligent job of putting this up every Wednesday for the audio version.
Actually,
So-
it's going up as soon as we're done.
oh my God, you're even better than I thought you just put it up on Wednesdays to be like, I mean, he's even better than that. It's up tonight. So go listen to it. Just replay it. You got yourself a video on demand on YouTube or Facebook or wherever, or you can just listen to the audio version while you're cooking or cleaning or you're going to the gym. Ryan's been showing us the numbers, and they're doing real good. We love the fact there are more people listening to the show now than there ever have been in the last 5 or 6 years.
Definitely.
And just continue to spread the word, man. If you like wrestling and your friends like wrestling, tell them you listen to this podcast where people sit around and shoot shit about wrestling for an hour every week. It's the best part of my week, so maybe it's going to be the best part of yours. Subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow us on social media. We'll be back right here next Tuesday, 7 p.m. on Eastern Time for another edition of the War Report. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.